This is TWiT.
What is Bill C-11 and why are you so upset about it?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Leo. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. So Bill C-11, well, you know this because you worked in Canada for a long time. We have CanCon laws here, which means that if you're a local radio station or TV station or network, you have to do a percentage of Canadian content. And our CRTC, our version of the FCC, regulates what's considered Canadian. Like if you're a Canadian creator, it's not enough. You have to have a director or a right. Like there's a whole bunch of red tape you have to go through.
So for instance,
to prove you're Canadian.
When I left Tech TV, when I was fired, Vinny Longobardo said, but the Canadian broadcasters, which were Rogers, love Call for Help. Maybe you could go there and do it. So I talked to them, and they said, yeah, you can do it, but you're the only American on this show.
Yes.
Because it has to be Canadian content, and apparently I could host it as an American, but no one else.
You have to have a very careful, and you can have a guest who's American, but like they're very like strict about it.
I like
so they
that.
started to
I
update
understand that because otherwise we would just, culturally take over Canada. I can understand
with all the
that.
Canadian actors, comedians, and singers we sent to the U.S.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
what would happen to
Bieber
Anne
protocol.
Murray and Gordon Lightfoot?
Yes,
absolutely. We need
the issue
Canada.
was though that. The issue was that they were going to update this because it's horribly out of date, and they were going to include Netflix and Crave and Disney Plus. But then a bunch of industry people got in and said, well, you really should include YouTube because that's a big competitor of ours. And so the language is so vague right now that I, as an independent YouTuber, anyone who's monetized would have to fill out the same paperwork that Bell or Rogers has to do without any of their resources, would be subject to the same sorts of Canadian content policies. They're going to try to force YouTube to change the algorithm, the discovery system, so that it recommends Canadians over other content, even if our content isn't enjoyed by the audience, which means they won't watch it, which means that we'll be decelerated in YouTube.
Oh, Lord.
It's independent YouTubers are not broadcasters, and YouTube audience is not a cable bundle subscriber. And so right now it's looking very bad for us because there's all the money behind the big media companies, all the lobbyists. So they had hearings and they invited 11 lobbyists and one YouTuber to give them their opinion.
Oh, Lord.
And they spent the whole time grilling him about his French language policies. So it's not looking good for us. But we're trying to raise awareness so that hopefully all we want them to do is codify that independent YouTubers are not included, or YouTube and TikTok are not included in what should be, Netflix and cable.
But
streaming cable bundles?
Isn't this good for you, Rene? You are Canadian content.
Well, yeah.
You're wearing a flannel shirt, for Christ's sake.
The CRTC gets to decide that, and you have to fill out the forms for every video, which is incredibly onerous.
Oh.
And even then, like most of our audiences are global. Like one of the differences is Canadian broadcasters reflect our culture and values internally, so we get to see about us. But YouTube is global, and we should be using it to project our values and our culture. And this will make it harder to be. It'll make us over-compete in Canada and under-compete internationally.
Good point. And will it mean that I can't put Twitch shows on YouTube?
It means they'll be voted down. Like they'll be downranked compared to.
But only
shows.
Is there a YouTube Canada?
They would have to create a YouTube Canada where your
God.
videos were treated worse than our videos. But the thing is, like the way the YouTube discovery engine works is it shows you content based on what you've already watched that it thinks you're going to enjoy, but also based on what other people who watch similar things have enjoyed. And if they give me a random Canadian video just because it's Canadian, I'm not going to click on it, and that's going to make YouTube think it's a bad video. And it's not. It's just artificially mismatched.
Oh, that's terrible. And then not only that, but what
funny.
if Finland did the same thing, or France?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to. France kind of already has this because of the language. The specific issue you have there is that you all speak English. For us, the French market is, we do have two types of videos. We have videos in English and, well, every language, but also videos in French. And so I'm guessing this is sort of a self-selecting thing where it happens anyway.
A good point.
And
as long as I can watch Lupin in the U.S., I don't care.
Quebec would have French protections, though, for their version of YouTube.
Would you have to do
globally.
two versions of your videos, one in French, one in English?
No, but again, if I didn't make the French version, it would be dowranked in Quebec. And for a lot of Canadian YouTubers, it's not a big deal because our audiences are so vastly international. It just means that it would be harder to operate as a creator in Canada. So a lot of them would either just not not publish from Canada or leave, and it would be harder for Canadian audiences to actually get the videos they like. And my thing is, like, we overcompete. Canada has such an inferiority complex. We get the Olympics and we say, this finally proves we're an international city. It's like, no, we've been an international city for 50 years.
Right.
And the whole thing is like, there are so many amazing Canadian YouTubers. We punch way over our weight.
Honestly,
like we're
I
fragile.
think the U.S. should make a rule against Canadians.
Yes, Peter McKinnon out. Ryan George, like script eating. We don't need that in America.
Yeah, who needs Justin Bieber? Stay there.
Funny,
Who needs
I watch
Drake?
a lot of
I don't
Out
need
of Vegas.
Drake. Yeah.
even in tech. I watch a lot of English-speaking Canadian
It's good
creators.
content. It's great content.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
There's
you
some of
know,
the
we
biggest in
have
the world,
that.
Linus and Unbox Therapy.
That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Oh, is Linus from Canada too?
Linus and Unbox Therapy, two of the biggest 3 channels in tech YouTube. are
I
Canadian.
didn't know that. Wow.
Hard work Canucks. Anyway, there's actually a policy in France for streaming services. What essentially you were describing initially, Rene. So the reason you can have Lupin is that we do force even streaming services to spend a certain amount in, they have to have a certain amount of their production made in France with French actors and production companies and all of that. So it's already in place in France, and it's been for a long time.
Well, thank you,
Yeah,
because
we have that
Lupin
too.
is fantastic, and
Yes.
I want more. It's one of the best shows on TV, and if you haven't watched it, it's on Netflix. It's great.
I've watched one episode and it annoyed me.
What?
But I really loved Emily in Paris, which everyone else in France thought was.
Oh God, yeah. Even
ridiculous
Americans
stuff.
hated
Taxi
Emily in
Brooklyn, I think,
Paris.
too.
It was so. Okay, I will tell you this. French people won't tell you this, but her boss,
Yeah.
the woman,
Yeah.
and even like all of the French people are so freaking French. Maybe they're Parisian, but they are perfect representations of what French people are like. And you think it's
parody.
a caricature.
Yeah.
It isn't. People are like
that
that.
bad, huh?
Yes.
The devil.
Call
the devil.
my agent.
Oh, I love Call My
Yeah.
Agent.
Call My Agent.
And
is the
now,
best
and
thing.
it's going to be terrible. They're making an American remake of it, but the French is fantastic. The only problem with it is they're all French movie stars that I've never heard of or know.
I don't even
They
know
have
what it is.
They had one American. They had one American.
yeah, there's an American. Yeah, Call My Agent.
They
Oh,
made
you
a-
got to see it. It's going to be. It's called 10% in France.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. I haven't seen it, but I know it.
Yeah, we
is.
call it Call My Agent here because no one would know what 10% was.
They
but
made a
it's
Montreal
10%.
version of The Office, and they translated it verbatim, and the humor worked. They had to change it in France, but in the humor
They
worked
use the same
verbatim
scripts?
in Montreal. They just translate them to French, and they do them
Wow.
exactly the way that they were.
Wow.
It's a paper plant near the airport in Montreal. It's hilarious.
Oh, that's hysterical. Now I
Love
want to
his-
watch
yeah.
that. That sounds funny. Yeah, see, we live in a wonderful time where you can have this complete cross-cultural content, and it's the only people it's bad for is the U.S., which has been culturally dominant for so long. Let it go free.
Mr. Beast
The
has
reason
channels
you have them is
translating-
that we force it. We force it. If we did, I don't think there are two schools of thought on this. Some people say if we didn't force American companies to produce French stuff, then quality French stuff would emerge on its own. I don't think that's the case. It is so onerous and difficult to compete with international behemoths like Amazon and Netflix and Disney. I think it wouldn't exist if legally they didn't have to do things like these. Even the movie industry is heavily subsidized, and there are rules that make it, in France, it's still a prominent movie industry in the world globally because it is so supported by policy and the state.
Well, you make good movies. I mean, I don't know if Super Laser Punch will ever be about Tintin, but
But you got Denis Villeneuve. You have like a bunch of really great French directors.
Yeah,
so
But he's
they'll-
Canadian.
oh, is he?
He's Canadian.
Well, he's French Canadian.
French Canadian. It's practically
Yes,
French.
but don't tell the French Canadian they're French. They
No.
might.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah.
So C-11 is in Parliament in national.
Yes.
It's a national.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
it's a national law. And
Keep us
I
up
just
to
put a
date
video
on
up
this.
about it yesterday.
I
so
know, yeah.
there's a link in there where you can go and fill out a form and let them know exactly what you think about it.
They want to destroy YouTube as we know it, says Rene Ritchie's video from yesterday. Already 37,000 views. So you're getting the word out. And you can go to digitalfirstcanada.ca. Now, I guess if I sent a letter, it wouldn't have any.
They have 3 tracks. Like they'll, if you are Canadian, you put in your postal code, they'll find all the representatives for you. And if you're not, it'll let you send a sternly worded letter just to the general sort of Quebec Canadian government.
Dear Monsieur Quebecois.
So the thing is, like, we're doomed in the House of Parliament because they've already read through it. But we don't have an elected Senate. We have a patronage-appointed Senate.
What?
And they're open target for all. Yeah, Canada has a House of Lords. So so like you get appointed to it for life, and you just sit there as a senator. No elections. If you have good friends in government, they'll appoint you when it's their turn. But they're a target, so we can lobby them, and they can send this thing back.
I guess it is kind of like the U.S. Senate, in a way.
It's the House of Lords, basically.